A lot of you, when you get into your chemistry exam, you read a question that's about moles, you crash out. It's because you don't yet understand when is the right time to use each of those different equations that are involved with moles. If you watch this, it's not going to happen anymore. As I explained in one of my recent videos, a mole of any substance, just like a dozen is 12, a couple is 2, is 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23 lots of that substance. It's just an amount of substance. We use these in chemistry because in chemistry, we're dealing with the calculations involving really teeny tiny things. Atoms. So having a big number like 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23 is necessary. That number is called Avogadro's constant. So if you're trying to figure out how many entities you have, whether it's compounds, individual atoms, depends on the specific thing you're talking about, all you need to do is multiply what 1 mole is by the number of moles you have, and it tells you how many lots of that entity you have. However, there are also some calculation questions a little bit more complex that involve using mass and MR as well. I made a recent video about this too. I started flossing at the start. Those use the fact that the MR of any substance, which is the formula mass of that substance, where you add up all the mass numbers on the periodic table, that is the mass of one singular mole of that substance. So if we're given a mass in a question, we can then figure out how many moles of that substance we have. G Mr. Mole, as I like to remember, mass, MR, moles. So the key thing to look out for is whether or not your question involves mass. If it gives you the mass, it's going to be one of those involving MR, mass and moles. If it does not, if it asks you for how many particles or atoms or compounds, how many lots of that entity there are, you're instead just going to be using the Avogadro's number. Take a look at these questions. Calculate the number of molecules in 15 moles of H2O. Well, if you're looking for the number of molecules, that's how many entities we have. This is the one where we use Avogadro's constant. Here's another question. It says calculate the number of moles in 375 grams of CaCO3. Notice this one's involving the mass as well as the moles in the formula. So this is going to be one of those G Mr. Mole questions. Have a look at this question. Is it Avogadro's constant or calculating with G Mr. Mole? Well, it says calculate the number of atoms in 3 moles of sulfur. Doesn't involve mass, so it's an Avogadro's constant question. Here's another. What do you think? It says calculate the number of molecules in 5 moles of methane. Again, it doesn't involve mass, dudes. So of course, it's going to be an Avogadro's constant question. This one says calculate the number of moles in 120 grams of carbon dioxide. This one involves a bit of mass. That's your indicator. It's going to be one of those G Mr. Mole questions, not an Avogadro's constant question. I hope that helped, guys. Remember, if you want to get your hands on the very best GCSE predicted papers, we spent thousands of hours making these. You can go and find them, linked in my bio, christuition.co.uk. Use Wells10 for a discount.